Em ơi, đưa anh tấm ngói nữa đi.
Đây anh, tấm này được chưa?
Rồi, cảm ơn em nhá.
Không có chi, anh làm từ từ thôi.
Hello, dear audience. After spending the Lunar New Year in the city, CEO Quan returned to the countryside and realized that the most important person in his life was Tieu Lac. Seeing her living in an old, fragile house broke his heart. Instead of choosing luxury, he decided to build her a new home with his own hands, not with extravagance, but with sincere love and responsibility as a man who truly wants to protect the woman he loves. From the very first bricks laid carefully into place, to the sturdy wooden door he crafted, and finally the red roof tiles installed under the clear blue sky, every detail carried their shared effort. They were not just building a house, they were building a future together. As they worked side by side, Tieu Lac's shyness slowly faded, especially when Quan gently assured her that her happiness was the greatest gift she could ever give him. When the house was finally completed, it also marked the beginning of a promise. Once their home was ready, a warm and heartfelt wedding would follow, opening a new chapter in their simple yet deeply meaningful love story. If you enjoy gentle, emotional, and inspiring love stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next episodes. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to continue creating warm and meaningful stories for you. See you in our next journey of love. After finishing the Lunar New Year celebrations in the city, CEO Quan drove back to the countryside with a heart that felt heavier than before. The bright lights, luxurious banquets, and endless greetings during the holiday had surrounded him for days, yet none of it truly warmed him. What lingered in his mind was not the fireworks over the skyline, but the quiet image of Tieu Lac standing alone in front of her small, aging house, smiling gently as she waved goodbye when he left for the city. When he stepped out of the car and looked at her home again, the contrast struck him deeply. The walls were slightly cracked, the paint had faded under years of sun and rain, and the roof still bore signs of past storms. Inside, everything was simple, almost too simple. The wooden table had been repaired more than once. The kitchen shelves were old but carefully cleaned, and the bed near the window was neatly made with blankets she had stitched herself. There was nothing luxurious, yet everything carried the warmth of her quiet resilience. Quan felt a surge of guilt. While he had been enjoying the comfort of a penthouse apartment in the city during Tet, she had stayed here, tending to the farm, feeding the chickens, and sweeping the yard as usual. She never complained. She never asked for more. She always told him she was fine. But now, standing in the middle of her modest living room, he realized that fine was not enough, not for the woman he loved. That evening, after dinner, they sat together by the small stove. The fire crackled softly, casting warm light across her face. Tieu Lac talked about the farm, about how the vegetables had grown well this season, about the neighbors who had sent her sticky rice cakes during the holiday. She spoke with contentment, as if life had already given her everything she needed. Quan watched her quietly before reaching out to hold her hand. His voice, usually confident and decisive in the boardroom, softened. He told her that during his time in the city, he had been thinking a lot about their future, about what kind of life he wanted to give her. He confessed that it hurt him to see her living in such a small and fragile house, while he had the ability to change that. He looked into her eyes and said he wanted to build her a new home. Not something extravagant, not a mansion that would make her uncomfortable, but a clean, sturdy house where she would never have to worry about rain leaking through the roof or cold winds slipping through broken windows. A place where she could truly rest. A place that would belong to both of them. He went further, revealing a dream he had kept quietly in his heart. Once the new house was finished, he wanted them to hold their wedding there. He wanted her to walk into their shared home not just as Tieu Lac, the hard-working farm girl, but as his bride. At his words, her cheeks flushed. She lowered her eyes, overwhelmed by emotion. She told him she felt unworthy, that he had already done so much for her, stood by her, protected her, and treated her with respect. She had not given him anything in return. How could she accept something as big as a new house? Quan gently lifted her chin and smiled. He told her that love was not a transaction. He did not need repayment. The only thing he wanted was to see her smile freely, without worry or insecurity. Her happiness, he said, was the greatest gift she could ever give him. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the soft glow of firelight and the peaceful sounds of the countryside night, a new chapter of their lives began, not with grand promises, but with a sincere decision to build a future together from the ground up. With their decision made, CEO Quan and Tieu Lac did not waste any time. Early the next morning, as the first rays of sunlight stretched across the fields, they stood side by side in the small yard where the new house would rise. The air was fresh, still carrying the faint scent of spring after Tet. For them, it felt like the perfect beginning. Quan had arranged for building materials to be delivered, but he insisted that they would take part in the construction themselves. He did not want this to be just another project completed with money. He wanted every brick to carry their shared effort, every wall to hold a memory of their laughter and determination. He rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, no longer looking like the polished executive from the city, but like a man ready to build a life with his own hands. Tieu Lac tied her hair neatly behind her head, her eyes bright with both excitement and nervousness. She had never imagined that one day she would be building her own house alongside the man she loved. They began with the foundation. Quan carefully measured the ground while Tieu Lac held the tape steady, listening closely as he explained his plan. Sometimes she would tilt her head and suggest small changes, like placing the kitchen window where it could catch the morning sun, or leaving space in the yard for flower pots. Quan listened attentively, adjusting his drawings without hesitation. This was not just his house, it was theirs. When it came time to lay the first bricks, Quan mixed cement in a large basin, his movement slightly clumsy at first. Tieu Lac could not help but laugh softly when a bit of wet cement splashed onto his trousers. Instead of being annoyed, he laughed with her. The sound echoed warmly across the yard, dissolving any remaining tension. Tieu Lac knelt down carefully, placing each brick in a straight line, pressing it gently into the fresh cement. Her hands, used to farm work, moved steadily and patiently. Quan followed behind, checking alignment and adding more mortar. Together, they found a rhythm, one placing, one securing, one holding, one adjusting. As the walls slowly began to rise, so did their sense of accomplishment. Every evening, they would step back and look at what they had achieved that day. Even if it was only a few rows of bricks, it felt meaningful. Quan would tease her, calling her the most diligent future bride, while she would pretend to scold him for not resting enough. The day they installed the door frame felt especially significant. Quan sanded the wooden panels carefully, ensuring the surface was smooth. He hammered each nail with precision, as if sealing a promise into the wood. Tieu Lac stood beside him, holding the frame steady, her heart quietly imagining the day she would walk through that doorway in a wedding dress. They coordinated naturally, as though they had always worked this way. When the sun grew too strong, Quan would urge her to sit in the shade and drink water, but she refused to be treated delicately. She wanted to contribute equally. And when his shoulders grew sore from lifting heavy materials, she would massage them gently, her touch full of care. By the time the structure began to take shape, it was more than just a building site. It had become a symbol of partnership. The sound of bricks tapping into place, the steady rhythm of hammer against nail, and their shared laughter blended into a melody of love and teamwork. With each passing day, the house stood taller, and so did their confidence in the future they were building, one brick, one promise, and one heartfelt effort at a time. As the structure of the house neared completion, the most symbolic stage arrived, the roofing. For CEO Quan and Tieu Lac, this was more than simply covering the walls they had worked so hard to build. It felt like sealing their shared promises beneath a shelter that would protect their future family. That morning, the sky was a clear, endless blue, as if blessing their efforts. A gentle breeze swept across the fields, carrying the scent of fresh earth and distant blossoms. Quan carefully set up the wooden beams, while Tieu Lac stood below, handing him tools and materials with steady hands. Though climbing onto the framework made her nervous, she trusted him completely. When it was time to place the first roof tile, Quan paused. He looked down at her, his eyes filled with warmth, and asked her to come up beside him. After a brief hesitation, she climbed carefully, her fingers gripping the ladder. Standing together on the wooden frame, they could see the entire farm stretching out before them, the vegetable patches, the small pond, and the dirt road leading toward the village. It was the life they had chosen. Quan handed her the first red tile. "Let's place this together," he said softly. Side by side, they positioned it carefully. Their fingers brushed as they adjusted it into place. When it settled perfectly, they exchanged a quiet smile. That single tile felt heavier than it should have, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. It marked the beginning of a roof that would shield them from storms, both literal and emotional. They continued working in harmony. Quan secured each tile firmly, ensuring no gap would allow rain to seep through. Tieu Lac followed closely, checking alignment and passing the next piece with focus and care. Occasionally, he would remind her to move slowly, afraid she might slip. She would respond with a playful glance, assuring him she was stronger than he thought. Hours passed, but neither of them complained. Sweat dampened their clothes, and dust clung to their hands, yet their hearts felt light. With every row of tiles completed, the house began to look whole, solid, proud, and ready to welcome life inside. When the final tile was finally set into place, Quan let out a long breath. He climbed down first and reached up to help Tieu Lac descend safely. The moment her feet touched the ground, they both instinctively stepped back to admire their work. The house stood there quietly under the sunlight. It was not grand or luxurious, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. The walls they had built together stood firm. The door he had crafted gleamed warmly. The roof they had just finished glowed red beneath the afternoon sky. Tieu Lac's eyes shimmered with emotion. She never imagined that someone would be willing to build a home for her with such sincerity. She leaned gently against Quan's shoulder, her voice trembling slightly as she whispered that this house already felt warmer than any place she had ever lived. Quan wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. He told her this was only the beginning. Soon the rooms would be filled with furniture, laughter, and shared meals. One day, perhaps, even the sound of children running across the floor. Standing there in the fading golden light, surrounded by the scent of new wood and fresh cement, they understood something deeply. This house was not just built from bricks and tiles. It was built from patience, effort, forgiveness, and love. And beneath that newly finished roof, they were no longer just two people in love. They were partners, ready to begin the rest of their lives together.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tiểu Lạc Review. Vậy là câu chuyện của chúng ta ngày hôm nay đã kết thúc tại đây. Trong câu chuyện hôm nay của chúng ta thì đã kể về nội dung đó chính là việc sau khi từ thành phố trở về dịp Tết thì CEO Quân đã đề nghị với Tiểu Lạc là anh muốn cải tạo, sửa chữa và tặng cô một căn nhà mới tại nông trại của anh. sắp bên cạnh căn nhà của anh, nhưng Tiểu Lạc thì cảm thấy rất là ngại ngùng, cô đã từ chối và không muốn nhận căn nhà đó, bởi vì cô không muốn là anh phải tốn quá nhiều sức lực cũng như tiền bạc vào bản thân mình. Nhưng mà với CEO Quân thì những việc mà CEO Quân làm cho Tiểu Lạc là hoàn toàn tự nguyện, và anh rất muốn được làm điều gì đó ý nghĩa cho Tiểu Lạc. Vì trước sự chân thành của CEO Quân thì Tiểu Lạc cũng đã chấp nhận món quà ân tình này, và hai người đã tiến hành cùng nhau xây dựng sửa chữa căn nhà mới của Tiểu Lạc. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn sẽ còn được kể ở các video tiếp theo. Các bạn hãy theo đón xem bằng cách bấm vào nút đăng ký kênh, sẽ nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các câu chuyện sẽ được mình phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh Lý Tiểu Lạc Review nhé. Và cũng đừng quên bấm vào giỏ hàng đính kèm trên video để nhận được các ưu đãi về sản phẩm, và hãy mua hàng ủng hộ Tiểu Lạc nhé. Bye bye.